forum today is How's Business in Oregon City? Navigating the Dark Clouds of Today's Economic Climate. I'm excited to have three very different panelists, which will give you different perspectives on how to do business in Oregon City successfully. We have a representative from the restaurant, automotive, and financial services industries. They will share highlights of their business, the changing trends and challenges they're facing, and how they are addressing them. First, we have Tara Wanstall. She's the owner of the Watershed Cafe since 2024. Watershed Cafe and Bistro serves as a warm, community-focused gathering place in downtown Oregon City, offering quality coffee, cocktails, and fresh food in an inviting atmosphere. By drawing on the name from the Willamette Falls Watershed, a historic regional hub where people have gathered and built relationships for generations, the cafe aligns itself with a legacy of connection and shared community space. This grounding in local identity strengthens the watershed's role as a modern third place, providing an accessible environment where both residents and visitors can meet, collaborate, and build meaningful ties while enjoying delicious food and drink. Please welcome Tara Wanstall.
I have a tendency to get too close to the mic, so you're going to have to tell me. You got it? Is that good? Okay. And am I advancing my own slides? I should have asked this question. Matt, am I advancing my own slides with this button? It's the arrow. Okay, thank you for that lovely introduction. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me today. I've been to one of these, so this is only my second. I'm very glad to be here today. The first thing that we're going to do is kick off with some industry trivia. So I work in the restaurant industry, and this has only been my, 2 years in the restaurant industry in the last 20 years. I come from high tech. I spent 15 years there. I took the wildest left turn in my career. Here we are. That's a whole nother story for another day over something stronger than water. Okay, so what we're going to do is have a couple rules. So you're going to get 3 guesses per question, 3 individual unique guesses. You can shout it out. We're not in class. You don't have to raise your hands. If there is a close guess, if you're over a number, that's okay. This is not The Price is Right. If you have a tie, I'm going to ask you to rock, paper, scissors because we're adults. So we're just going to go with that. You're going to get bags of coffee from the Watershed for the winners. So my husband, Aaron, has bags of Watershed coffee for you. If you need them ground, bring them to the cafe. We will grind them for you. Okay, so here we go. First question. How many restaurants and food service locations are in the state of Oregon? Guess number 1. 17,000. 7. Give me one more. 10,5. Okay, you got it, right there. There are 11,928 as of yesterday's numbers. Well, I think these are all guesses, right? What percentage of Oregon restaurants are small businesses with fewer than 50 employees? What percentage? Oh, wow. How many rock, paper, scissors are we going to have right now? So the answer is 80, and I heard you, but you already won, so you can't win again. You didn't? No? I heard 80 over there, on the nose. Okay, Aaron. Okay. Aaron, please, thank you. Okay, this is a good one. How many restaurants, cafes, bars, and food trucks are in Oregon City alone? Not downtown, Oregon City. Okay, I heard lots there. Okay, so whoever said, well, the answer is 120 to 150, depending on seasonality with food trucks. I think that was you. Did you get close? Yeah, that's Mike right there. All right, what share of Oregon restaurant revenue comes from repeat customers? What percentage? Okay, I got an 80 back there. Do you want me to repeat the question? Sorry. What share of Oregon restaurant revenue comes from repeat customers? We got an 80 back there. 95? You already won, but you're closest. Okay, who's closest to 60 to 70? You said 50? Okay, Betty gets a bag of coffee. The answer is 60 to 70%. I have two more questions. This is a tough one. What is the average profit margin for restaurants in Oregon? Okay, you're gonna have to do some rock, paper, scissors on this one. It's 3 to 5%. I think was it you? I think? Yeah, he got 4 over here. We're going straight in the middle. Who had it over here? You had it over? Do you two want to rock, paper, scissors? All right, rock, paper, scissors. What? Who's doing it? Rock, paper, scissors, go. Oh, the rocks breaks the scissors? Is that what it was? Rock, paper, scissors, go. Yeah, rock breaks those scissors right there. Bag of coffee, there we go. What percentage of Oregonians eat out at least once per week? 70. She got it, nail on the head right there. 70% of Oregonians eat out at least once a week. Okay, thank you for playing my game. I appreciate it. Hopefully you guys are all awake. Here we go. So we're gonna talk about restaurant industry insights first, and then we're gonna get into some specifics about watershed. So economic multipliers. I was surprised by this data point. Every dollar someone spends at the watershed, $1.80 goes back into the local economy. That's really interesting to me, but it's not surprising when I think about it, because 90% of our vendors for everything we have in-house are local Oregon companies. I hope there's no Cisco or US Foods reps in here. We don't use Cisco, we don't use US Foods. We use local distributors. There's 2 companies that helped us with remodeling. We did largely everything else ourselves. Thanks to my husband, Aaron. And both those companies who did the exterior painting for us and who did our countertops are local Oregon families. They live in Oregon City and their businesses are in Oregon City. That cost us more, but it was important to us. So when I look at these numbers, think about how you spend your local dollars. When you spend $1 with us instead of a large chain, $1.80 is going back into the local economy. Other interesting things about this here, there's 200,000 individuals across, hospitality and food service that are employees in the state of Oregon. The first is trade and transportation, in case you're wondering, and the second is private education and healthcare. How many of you have worked in a restaurant as the first job ever in your life? Isn't that crazy? 1 out of every 3 in the United States. I think the dishwashing position is the hardest and my least favorite, but I employ Oregon City high school students who are in the culinary program on the weekends, so they can see what it's like to actually work in a dish room, which has had its high points and low points, but it's really fun to have them go, wow, this is what it's like. I would also say the other part of this is 9 out of 10 small independently owned businesses fail in their first year. Or 30% of those fail in their first year. So we made it. We are, 15 months in, I think at this point, something like that. So, okay. So we're gonna talk a little bit about, make sure that goes. We're going to talk about some economic tailwinds. So I think nobody is surprised that this is a K-shaped economy at this point in time. Higher income households are still spending, while the majority of people who are not in the higher income cannot afford to have discretionary income to go out to spend money. The budgetary pressures that every level of government is feeling right now certainly restricts the ability for people, if they're thinking about more tax dollars, going to, just out of their paychecks, they're not thinking about discretionary income spending for places like restaurants. Those rules keep shifting. I think we're all trying to play the same game here, but a lot of times, some legislative uncertainty can really wipe the rug from underneath small businesses. And being a small business, you can't absorb some of those changes as fast as large corporations can. I would say that rising operational costs just across the board in general, utilities, insurance, I would say anything related to compliance or core services have skyrocketed. Literally, like keeping the lights on costs me so much money. And I'm sure you all saw this at homes as well, right? But from a business perspective, making sure it's warm in there right now in an 1895-year-old building costs me an absurd amount of money. It is not easy, for sure. And I would say that, a lot of times restaurants will increase menu pricing to kind of offset some of those costs. It feels like the natural thing, right? If I'm losing more money, I'm going to raise prices so I can get more money. But in the last year, they did a restaurant industry trend study, and any restaurant that raised their prices more than 10% actually saw a loss in their profits. Diners are not willing to pay more. They're just not. So I have to find other ways of making up the balance between those two things. Plus, it doesn't feel good. We had a case of eggs there for a little while. A case is 15 dozen eggs. You can imagine a breakfast spot and how many eggs we go through. That should have been one of my trivia questions. There was a point in time where we were paying $110 for 15 dozen eggs. Yeah. The average price right now is about $25 for large cage-free eggs that we pay. So we did not increase our prices for eggs. I thought about it hard. A lot of places did. We did not. I'm glad it's $25. There is a green onion shortage right now, in case anyone is wondering. The price for green onions right now for a pound of green onions from our distributor is about $20. So I went to Winco yesterday, and I spent a lot less on 3 pounds thanks to Winco instead of getting them from my distributor. These are the kinds of decisions that are micro decisions that I have to make every day just to make sure we're keeping our profit margin. All right, last I will say is, the healthcare costs are, we provide healthcare for our employees, for full-time employees. I'll talk about that in a minute. That's one of our biggest expenses. It's very unusual for a restaurant to provide healthcare for their full-time employees. It costs us a lot of money to do that as a small business, but those costs have gone up about 5% to 6%. We're lucky in that. If you're a larger employer, your increased rates were about 14%. Oh, did I hit a button? Yes, thank you. Okay. Am I in the same one? Okay. Let's talk about some tailwinds. So things that are great for us right now. I would say our small business ecosystem surprises me here in Oregon City. I wasn't prepared for how strong the business community is. I think the Oregon City Chamber, DOCA, this organization, OCBA, our elected officials, people are very engaged. That surprises me. I don't know why it surprises me, but it does surprise me, and I'm thankful for that. Long before our doors opened, we engaged in the business community, and it was probably the smartest thing I think I could have done. It was slightly unintentional. I was really interested in what was happening across the street from our cafe. Started going to some county meetings and started really paying attention, and then all of a sudden I met some people and I was like, oh wait, I think these are the right people who can probably dramatically increase foot traffic in my door if they have a place to meet, and I was not wrong about that. So I'm very glad to this business community. It also keeps, like I said, dollars circling locally. If all these people are spending money at all of our businesses locally, word of mouth travels. You say, have you been to that new restaurant? Have you, I need my carpets cleaned. Oh, I use this person. It is a great network of folks that really seem super intentional about wanting to see one another succeed. I don't think it's any surprise that population inflow is increasing our folks in Oregon City right now. I think that also means more restaurants are choosing our community, and they want the things they may have had from Multnomah County when they lived there, like myself 6 years ago, but they don't want to drive into Portland for it. So I think Watershed provides that. It's almost a staycation dining experience where they don't have to go into Portland to get something that they once had when they lived in Multnomah County. I would say every single week I meet a new family who just moved to Oregon City or West Lynn or Lake Oswego from Multnomah County. Not a week goes by where I don't hear it. They're asking me about schools. They're asking me about where I like to go do things, what's in town. I often see real estate agents using my cafe as a selling point in their marketing materials as your local cafe, which is pretty cool. I've seen families sit there with all sorts of binders and stacks of houses they just looked at with their real estate agents while they're having lunch or while they're having breakfast. So that seems like a great sign to me that people are wanting to move here and choosing to move here. Surprisingly enough, Lower prices in gas mean we have more money to spend. That's not surprising. The interesting thing about gas is that it is it's not optional for most people. Unless you drive a hybrid, we were just talking about this, unless you drive a hybrid or a fully electric car, if you need to get somewhere, this is not a walkable city in terms of getting from your house to your place of business. So for us, when people spend more money on gas, they don't have more discretionary income. But it's amazing how that weekly or sometimes more than weekly cost is less. Suddenly you have more in your wallet to spend. And okay, this one I'm excited about. So downtown Oregon City is reviving. I did not live here in the time of the mill days, but I've heard lots of stories. I am thrilled that we're going to have residential downtown for the first time in a very, very long time. Residential means increased foot traffic. It means strengthening our local economy. It means, for me, a built-in customer base literally across the street. I don't encourage jaywalking. People should use the right places. But new businesses are coming down as well. I sit on the DOCA board, and we have so many new businesses and so many storefronts that are being activated in the next couple weeks, and that's really exciting to see. Something that I was talking to some folks about yesterday is that I also hear so many people say, you know what, we're meeting here because my sister lives in Sandy, and I live in Beaverton, and this is an equal place for us to meet. 205 is an incredible source, I think, of people coming to our location because we are the meeting place for a lot of the Portland metro area. I get it all the time, and I didn't realize that until recently because I live here. You know, I think a lot of people may not pick Oregon City because there's something in Oregon City, but they're picking Oregon City because it's equidistant from a lot of places where people have expanded out to as the Portland, metro area has grown. Restaurant industry operational costs, as I talked about with onions and eggs, they're always going to skyrocket. But right now it's interesting because we don't get a lot of heads up. I think historically in the restaurant industry, people had a lot more heads up when things were going to be rocky or change. It could happen on a dime at this point in time. Supply chain volatility hasn't gone away from COVID. I would say that there is, in Oregon, it's interesting, there's a lot less suppliers in other cities like San Francisco and other cities that are bigger, but we have such a strong food culture here that there's not enough vendors to actually keep up. We go local as much as possible, that costs us money. And those local, farms, if they have something happens with one of their crops, our menu changes because we aren't going to, go to Costco and buy the spring mix. So we have to be really careful about any sort of supply issues and supply chain problems. I didn't know that gym to cafe culture was a thing, but it's a thing. It's not so much of a thing in Oregon City. I would love to see some sort of athletic facility go into the bottom of, just looking at you, friend, whether it's, just looking over here. It would be awesome if we had, Pilates studio, core power yoga bar. I know that Thrive Yoga is up the street, and I think it's a, wonderful place. Man, I wish they were downtown locally, because the correlation between people going to a gym and then people going to get coffee or breakfast is super strong. The weekday market for us is tough, and I would say I would love people to slow down and pull their car over before you have to pay to park at 8 a.m. when they're buzzing by to get on 43, or we don't have a lot of through traffic that stops downtown. So I think that's a tough thing for us. Before 9:30 a.m., if you don't want to wait for a table, you're not going to. But we really need to capitalize on that market where it's early and people aren't spending a ton of money. They can go through the drive-through, they can go to Dutch Brothers, I know that the money is there, but I'm still trying to figure out from that perspective, how do I get people to stop early in the morning? Our margins are smaller, dinner margins are much higher. People are spending less on alcohol. So for us, we have lower check averages for breakfast and lunch. As we think about expanding into dinner, which we are intentionally thinking about now, I have to be really careful because we built our brand so far on breakfast and lunch. But what does that look like as we move into dinner? That's a tough one for us to figure out right now. Okay, this is the one I really want to talk about, so I'm glad I somehow did not miss this. From a market perspective, the labor industry is tough. People are either in this industry because they're passing on to something else, or they're in this industry because they love it. And finding a balance between both is hard. We have one of the largest pools of really talented, career restaurant industry professionals in the nation. People come from other parts of the country to work here in the food service industry, which is something that we should all be proud of. But the sector isn't expanding. There's not a lot of new restaurants opening. So how do I stay competitive in hiring? A few things that we've done in this area. We pay a true living wage. If you don't know what the living wage is in Clackamas County, it's $28 an hour. If you don't make $28 an hour as a full-time employee, you cannot afford your rent, your gas, your utilities, and your basic needs. That's really tough for me to pay my employees who are full-time $28 an hour at a minimum, but I do. And that's unheard of in the restaurant industry. I also pay their health insurance 100%, medical, dental, and vision. I pay it 100%. And that keeps my employees. I don't have turnover. I don't have unregretted attrition, I should say. Unregretted attrition means people that are leaving that I really wish didn't leave. I don't have that problem because people want to stay in the culture that we've created. That makes my profit margins really small in an already very small profit margin industry. We also hire for passion and not, just to have a job. The people that I hire love and care about people. They want to ask how your day is. They know that your kid had a soccer game yesterday. They want to know how it was. I will tell one very quick story. How am I doing on time? One very quick story. We have two Alices that come in every third Thursday of the month. Alice and Alice are their names, so we call them the Alices. They wear striped shirts when they come in for lunch, and they have known each other for 50 years. They grew up next to each other. Their kids, a son and daughter, ended up marrying each other, and they still have lunch. They live in Westland. So when I found this out after several months, I made sure that they were coming in on November 19th, and it was the Thursday, and my entire staff wore striped shirts when they came in. And of course, they were just laughing in hysterics, and one of the Alices at the end of lunch came up, and she said, I feel so seen. My sister died unexpectedly yesterday, and I was absolutely dreading coming today because I didn't want to have to smile, and I didn't want to have to, and she said, I feel so seen. I feel so taken care of. And that's just it's something silly we did, but it meant a lot to her. And people come to the watershed, I think, because of experiences like that, and not just because our food is delicious, which I think our food is delicious. I know I'm biased, but I think it is. The other aspect of that is a sense of belonging. We intentionally created a third space. Guests feel proud to bring their friends and family. We had a lot of people bring in their family over the holidays. I think that we've got a lot of hospitality thought process around that, and that's birthdays, celebrations, after hike breakfasts or lunches. We hear a lot of food. We hear a lot of that. I would say that we've become somewhat of a social anchor for people. I have watched 3 levels of government sit at different tables at one point in time accidentally in the cafe recently, but I've also seen people come in after they have their first sonogram when they found out they're having a boy, and then the first time they took their little son after he was born out for an outing after they got home from the hospital was to our cafe, and they were so excited to show us. So that, I think, has made a huge impact for us in seeing that my staff can make a big difference in people's day, and people buy emotional connection. And I don't mean to sound cold and callous when I say that, but people really do buy emotional connection. And that, I think, has built a strong core for us. The last thing I'll talk about here from a local perspective is that people want to root for the small town. People want to root for people that live in the small town, and I intentionally opened Watershed in our town that we live in. It's a 7-minute drive to our house if you're going slightly quick. The last thing on this slide is increased technology advancements. AI is all over the place, but for our business, we I think I'm fortunate in that I have a tech background. Most restaurant owners probably don't. So I know how to leverage things for our COGS, leverage things for our inventory, our labor costs. But I haven't scratched the surface when it comes to AI related to marketing capabilities, and that's really what I'm focusing on in this next year. I won't use AI to automate guest experiences, but I certainly will use what I can to understand how I can reach a broader audience from an AI perspective. First-timers overwhelmingly say they found us on Google. I'm going to talk a lot about Google here for a second because I know that you all know shopping local is important. I would say that Google pushes reviews to the top if there's videos or there's photos. If you're leaving a review for a business, don't simply leave stars. Take a picture, leave your review. Google pops that algorithm up to the top. They trust photos, they trust what they can see. Take a picture of the menu. It may not be updated from a previous photo. People will find us on 205, they will search great breakfast or lunch, they will look at the photos, they will look at the menu, they will look at the reviews, and by the time the passenger is doing that, they've shown up at our door. Every single day I hear this. Leave Google reviews, regardless of the industry, and make sure you take pictures, and if you can, a video. Google hosts more than half of all online reviews. So I think that, people are, I don't care about Yelp reviews. TripAdvisor, sorry, don't bother. Google reviews are the most important. In a volatile economy, I would say business and civic leaders must champion predictable, business-friendly environments downtown. Include those small business owners in county planning and city planning. When you do that, you have a lived experience at the table and not just assumptions. So I think those are, I think the folks in the room intend to make really smart decisions at the county and the city level, but having lived experience at the table brings another lens that they may not have. Okay, I'm done. No more slides. Done.
Thank you so much, Tara. That was fantastic. As a reminder, there's a blue question cards on the table. As thoughts arise as you listen to the presenters, please write it down. At the end of our three presenters, someone will be collecting them, and we'll have a Q&A session. Next up, we have Ira Jones. He's the general manager for Lithia Subaru in Oregon City since 2021. He got his start in the car business in 2001 at Lithia Dodge in Eugene as a salesperson after growing up at his dad's car lot. He has held most of the jobs in the car dealership and loves taking care of customers at the highest level of service. He is surrounded by a great team at Oregon City Lithia Subaru. He lives with his wife and two children in Southeast Portland. He enjoys skiing, hiking, kayaking, and anything outdoors. Please welcome Ira Jones.
All right, hi everybody. Thanks for having me today. Yeah, a little bit about Lithia, the company that owns Subaru of Oregon City. We are the largest retailer of new cars in the nation. We're based here in Medford, Oregon, actually, and we're a publicly held company traded on the New York Stock Exchange under the LAD moniker. But one of the reasons we've been able to scale as successfully as we have is they give general managers a lot of autonomy to operate within their market how they see fit. And not only that, but our partnership with Subaru not only kind of ranks us on how many new cars that we sell, how well we take care of our customers, but also our community involvement. So I'm really proud that not only does Lithia support us, but Subaru supports us in supporting a lot of initiatives, including the Homeless Solutions Coalition of Clackamas County. We recently, through the Share the Love program, which is a wonderful program that Subaru puts on. For every new car that we sell, customers are able to choose where they'd like their donation to go. So Subaru can do a lot of things incentive-wise, and instead of putting money on the hood or anything else, they donate money to a local cause. We do it with Make-A-Wish, we do it with ASPCA, we also do it with Humane Society, and we support Father's Heart here in town. We employ 72 people locally, right just less than a block away. Sell approximately 180 cars a month and service many, many more than that. Oftentimes we're servicing 1,500 cars a month. So it's quite busy over there. But I do feel really lucky to represent Subaru. I'm sure if we can do a show of hands, how many people in here either drive a Subaru or know somebody that drives a Subaru. It is the car of the Northwest and biased for a good reason. So and also if you want a Subaru, just let me know. I know a guy. So when I was asked to speak, we were supposed to talk about some of the hardships that we're facing doing business in Oregon City, and I think that's kind of a micro level question, and this is probably a bit more macro because it just has to do with remaining profitability and figuring out a way to be affordable for customers. There is a lot of margin compression right now in every industry. This is going to be unique to the auto industry, and I can talk about this for days, and it's probably going to be drab and boring. We'll talk about the bad stuff first, and then the good stuff following it. A vehicle is generally the second largest purchase a person makes behind a home, and it's pretty staggering the increase that we've seen in monthly payments. We all know that there's not as much discretionary income that's out there. It's pretty crazy to look at these numbers. On new cars, in 2019, the average payment was $554. In 2025, it's up to $748. Keep in mind, we don't see a lot of $748. And actually, when I was doing research for this, I found that over 30% of people spend over $1,000 a month on their car payment, which will weight the average to be a little bit higher. We don't do, I don't, at Buick GMC and Cadillac of Portland, when I was over there, we did see a couple $1,000 payments. At Oregon City Subaru, we don't do $1,000 payments. So we're trying to get well under that $748 average. And then on used cars, this was pretty surprising as well. It was $389 for a used car payment in 2019, and now it's $532. So it's a huge investment. And so we are trying to figure out ways to find the lowest possible payment for a customer without them costing money over the long term. But I found these numbers pretty surprising. And I don't know how many people in this room have a $748 car payment, but so here's some things I'm just going to talk about as we go through this and the challenges that we face. So new and used car pricing. The tariffs have had an impact. Obviously, we're a Japanese company, so the tariffs have had an impact on us, as well as just overall supply and demand on used cars. I'll get into that as well. Interest rates continue to climb. We haven't gotten a lot of relief in that department, and what a lot of people don't know is not only is it the percentage rate that you're paying on the car, but for the dealer, we pay what's called a flooring rate. So we don't actually own all the vehicles that we have on our lot. We have essentially a line of credit that's individual to each specific car. The longer a car sits there, not only the more do you pay on an interest, but that interest rate steadily climbs. So we want to move our inventory as quickly as possible to pay the least amount of interest, but as interest rates rise for everybody else on the consumer side, they also raise for us on the business side, which is quickly become our third highest expense at the dealership. And then personnel expense, I don't want to necessarily dwell on this, but we're really proud to employ 72 people, and we want to keep every single person that we have. We have to, hit all of our metrics and make sure that our personnel expense isn't too big in relation to our gross and net profit. So we have to protect every dollar that we have to keep people employed and on staff. So the tariff effect on pricing, it did say it can increase car prices by as much as $6,000. Subaru, in their commitment to transparency to customers, was the first large manufacturer to come out and say that they did have to raise prices. On average, it was $1,800 across the board. As a weighted average, the more expensive cars got more of an increase, the less expensive cars got less of an increase. But it did have a detrimental effect on the overall price. We didn't really see that reflected in the consumer. They all knew that that was happening. They moved forward. We're starting to see it a little bit now. In fact, we finished 2025 ahead of where we finished in 2024, but 2026 has started off as an uphill battle, and I think it's a lot of these factors that we're talking about, just in overall volume and then also in profitability. But tariffs are making cars more expensive, and then on the flip side of that, that people don't always think about is as new cars get more expensive, used cars also get more expensive. And a lot of the used cars that we're seeing now are late model used cars that were built during the COVID pandemic. We remember those days, but they didn't make nearly as many cars due to chip shortages, demand, and everything else. So there's not as many used cars in the market as we're used to seeing. Those cars are very expensive because there's not as many. New car prices are going up. The market's going to follow, so used car prices are up as well. So how do we combat that? Well, we focus on used cars having a $25,000 average transaction price. So we have a very robust buying center that just buys cars off the street, whether it's Facebook Marketplace, Auto Trader, wherever they can, just from consumers directly to get them, because you can't buy anything under $20,000 at an auction right now. There's also, when I talk about supply and demand, the EV market is a very unique market that we're still trying to figure out. Not a lot of people have their finger on what exactly is going on. I certainly don't. But what I do know is that this time last year, the CARB, Oregon was a voluntary California Air Regulatory Board state, which meant this year, 40% of the new vehicles that we sold would have to be battery electric. That did get repealed, but with that, Subaru, Toyota, Honda, GM, Ford, all the big manufacturers had to put billions of dollars into R&D to try to design these cars to get them ready to market. So that glut of cars is still coming through, and we're going to have to sell them. Luckily, we're not federally regulated to sell 40% of our new cars as battery electric vehicles, but we're seeing the values on those come down pretty steadily, so they're becoming a lot more affordable. And I don't know, honestly, if the market was quite ready for it yet. I do think we're going to see an increase in battery EV cars, but I don't think we have the infrastructure. I think a lot of people still continue to have range anxiety about how many miles they can drive their car without having to charge it, understanding where and how to charge cars. And as that gets built out, we'll see a lot more battery electric cars on the road. I know that a lot of the big manufacturers have at least postponed or scrapped some of their battery EV programs. Subaru is still staying true to it, so we will see 4 new battery electric models, as well as a lot more hybrid models. And the demand for hybrids is through the roof. We don't have any in stock, and as we have a waiting list for them, and as we get them, we'll sell them. But that's definitely the direction that the market's going. So the rising cost of money, I know I touched on this on flooring, but we're looking at a lot of numbers and a lot of charts, but what we see at the dealership level is really the lack of consumer confidence in the payment gap, is what we call it. Where they want to be or where they expect to be when they come in to look at a car, and then what the reality of the numbers are. And this is based on Q3 2025 data. It's the latest data that I could get. But used cars at 11.4%, new cars at 6.5%. Subaru doesn't incentivize their cars, but they do incentivize the interest rate. So right now we have anywhere from 0.9% to the highest rate on a new car is 5.9% if you qualify for it. That's one thing that we do to stand apart and to try to fight the good fight, I guess, so to speak. But as you can see, new cars are at $42,000 and used cars are at $27,000 across the board. So it is a huge amount of money that we're talking about. So how we are thriving in this uncertainty. I mentioned less expensive cars. We're focusing on value line cars. Subaru just recently started building the Forester in America. So it took many months, but they brought over everything from Japan. It's built in Indiana, in Lafayette. It's a zero-waste facility. I actually got the privilege to go out there and see it, and it's amazing how much pride goes into building these and having a zero waste. Even in the cafeteria, everybody knows where the compost bins are and where all the recyclable items go and all the reusable items. But with that being said, they were able to reduce the price. And not only that, Subaru sees this as a great opportunity to go after some market share, whereas everybody's going to have to either continue rising their prices to meet the tariff demands or to meet the increasing costs. Subaru is wanting to take over market share by reducing prices. So I included this slide to show, especially on the new Forester, they had to announce that they were raising prices, but now they're bringing the prices down that much and a little bit more to meet the affordability requirements of their customers. They want to be known as an affordable, reliable brand, and I think they've done a really good job of doing that. So, adapting to this change, right? As things get that much more expensive, we have to figure out how to make sure we maintain our profit margin to keep everybody employed. And I think you guys would be very surprised at how little money we make on selling new cars. In fact, at the end of last month, we lost money on every new car that we sold just to be able to get the volume out there and to keep the momentum going. But it's a sign of consumer confidence in what customers are willing to pay. And if a customer comes in and wants to buy a car, we're gonna do everything we can to give them the best experience that we possibly can, as well as meet their payment demands. Acknowledging the payment gap and stressors that our customers feel. And I know Subaru focuses on the customer experience. We focus on the customer experience. We just want to be the best place that you can possibly think of to buy a car, not necessarily, the best price. And we're not going to try to shoehorn somebody into a car they don't want. But we have to be aware and be transparent with our customers and let them know what's going on, and show them what the interest rate does to affect the payment, what the price does to affect the payment. And then cross-collaboration. We're very lucky to have such a robust service department. The better that we all work together, and if you ever come to the store, I always say same team, same team. We're all on the same team, we're all in it together just to give the customers the best experience we possibly can. So if a customer's not ready to buy a new car, let's do everything we can to keep them in the Subaru family and keep them in the Oregon City Subaru family, and maintain that car. And if that means reducing the price on it, then that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna reduce the price of the labor or reduce the price of the parts to make sure that we keep that customer in our ecosystem. And then some good news. We are proud to be part of Oregon City. We're proud to support the Caring Place, which is going to be built next door. This is a rendering of what our new Subaru retailer is going to look like. By the way, Subaru doesn't call them dealerships, they call them retailers. So this is the new rendering. This is pretty rough, because where you see that Subaru sign, it's going to be a little bit taller. It's going to be about a $20 million project. We're hoping to break ground. They're saying in spring, towards the end of spring, which probably to me means end of summer. We'll see how it goes. Design has been quite a challenge. It's not something that I'm familiar with or comfortable in, but we're getting there. And one of the reasons that we've postponed construction for so long is Subaru did come out with this new design phase. We were ready to build this time almost 2 years ago, and then we found out Subaru was going to have this new design phase, which I think is much more representative of a Subaru customer. And Subaru's done a really good job of positioning itself as almost a lifestyle brand. And this looks kind of more like an REI than it does a car dealership. And if you've set foot in Oregon City Subaru right now, it has a very old car dealership-y feeling to it. I don't know how to say that any better. There's no disguising what we are. So we're very excited for the future. So hopefully in 2 years, this is what they call the connectivity hub. And the idea behind it, they use Bass Pro Shops and Harley Davidson actually as models for what they're trying to do. So there's not necessarily going to be a separation between our service, parts, and sales department. Everybody's going to be in the showroom together. There's going to be a coffee bar. It's just a place to come and live the Subaru lifestyle and be part of the brand. So we're very excited to be, by the time we get done with construction, we'll be one of the first 10 Subaru retailers in the country to have this design and this design phase, and it's going to be right here in Oregon City. It's going to be at the location that it is now, so it's going to be, some hardships in the near future, but the light at the end of the tunnel is not a train. That's what I keep telling all the guys. So we're going to get there, and hopefully that's more information than you guys ever wanted to know about the car business. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ira. Next up, we have Matt Chrisman. He's a business banking relationship manager at Columbia Bank. Matt supports small business banking customers across Oregon and Southwest Washington. He's eager to listen and develop trusting relationships with clients to serve their needs. Matt is a business lender with over 25 years of banking experience. He works on lending for small and closely held businesses to help them expand, providing working capital, making equipment purchases, and real estate. He's earned a bachelor's degree in communications at University of Oregon and is a graduate of Northwest Intermediate Banking School. He's active in the community, including as a member of the Lake Oswego Rotary and a current board member. He's a former vice president of the Lake Oswego Chamber of Commerce and a former treasurer for that organization. He also volunteers at Hunger Fighters, a local food bank in Lake Oswego. Please welcome Matt.
Sorry I didn't bring a slide deck, and I'll say, Ira, that I've owned 5 cars in my life. So the next one I buy, I'm going to come get a Subaru from you. How's that? So that's how I've kept my payment down. So anyways, excited to be here. I think probably most of you are familiar with West Coast Bank. So we opened a branch here a long time ago, and then Columbia bought us, and then we bought Umpqua. Then we bought Umpqua Bank, and then we changed the name back to Columbia. So here we are. We're back and forth. And I personally was on the Columbia side, so I'm very excited that we're back to Columbia. The nice thing is that we have retained most of our senior management in the state of Oregon. So where I'm going with that is we really are still, even though we're in 8 states now, and we're a $70 billion bank, in Oregon and then all over the footprint, we still operate as a community bank. We still call ourselves a community bank of scale. And what that means is you have dedicated relationship managers that are going to help you through any process you have. And I always say that if you come and you want a loan from me, I'm going to say to you, I'm happy to help you. And we're in different stages in our business of where we're at, but always happy to help you with a loan. But I also want to be your relationship manager. So I want to have your entire banking relationship. I want to build relationship with the customers. I want to know who your kids are, what they do. So that's really important to me. That's really what we do at Columbia Bank. So kind of lost my train of thought there. So so what we look at when we look at a business is we say, where are you at in the evolution of the business? So typically 2 years in, we can do regular financing on a business. Up to 18 months, we can do SBA financing. And then after that, we have alternatives for you. There's what are called CDFIs. And they're organizations that help businesses in different stages where you can help. Maybe the cash flow is not there, the collateral is not there, or you're a startup. So those are organizations that can help. And then there's always the hard money lenders as well, too. But we walk with you along that path because we want to make sure when you're out of that cycle that we're going to be able to help you with the regular bank financing. So really important to us. So was asked to talk a little bit about the headwinds. So obviously 2026 in banking, there's always a new set of headwinds. I think maybe they're very similar this year to last year. And the number one is interest rates. We all look at that. Affects your business. I think it affects everybody's business. And while I do business, I also wanted to talk about the consumer side as well too, because you look at the state of Oregon, and I don't like to use the word crisis, but we have the housing situation where rates are high. So if you're a young person coming out of college, it's very hard to buy a house. And so how do we solve that problem? Well, 4 years ago, rates were probably half what they were. Mortgage rates were half what they were when you were trying to buy a house. So think about it. You're doubling your payment on the house when you go to buy one now. So that's a lag. And then I always look at, right now we don't have any space to build new homes. So what do we do with that? I mean, do we push out and allow for more building in that area? So it's just really a thing that we need to think about, I guess. And then on the business side, of course, if you came to me 4 years ago and wanted an operating line of credit, it's probably going to cost you about half what it costs you now. So what does that do? It increases the cost for everybody. So just things to think about. People are still borrowing money. Business, I feel, is vibrant. So that's good, I think. And then if you look at the increase, so we, obviously, so a bank takes in your deposits, right? Which becomes our capital to be able to lend you money. So we have an increased cost on our capital as well, too. So everybody thinks if we have higher interest rates at the bank, we're making, we're making that much more money, but that's really not the case because we have the increased costs of capital. So that's a headwind as well too, which then goes into what I call asset quality. So in looking at our loan portfolio, I see our bankers are all nodding. They know what I'm talking about. So that talks about, you know, the strength of our loan portfolios. And if we have to set aside money for that, well, that as well too. So then that takes away from our capital. And then of course the economic slowdowns. So, you know, I think Multnomah County and Portland have been mentioned a little bit, and we're here in Oregon City. We're here, you know, I work primarily in the Tualatin area, but we got to think about Portland. We can't. Portland is our economic engine. So somehow we've got to figure out how to bring Portland back, I guess I'm saying. And you know, I think about like the real estate. Everybody knows what's happening in real estate. You know, Big Pink, the building, right? 5 years ago, it sold for $350 million. It just sold for $42 million. So it's, you know, it's just, how do we get that energy back? And I'm not trying to be all bad. It's just, you know, there are things that we need to work on. And there are a lot of good things as well, too. Technology is interesting to me. So technology, and not just AI, I'll talk a little bit about that, but I don't know how long ago. I remember when I worked at Bank of America, they had an account that if you came into the bank, it cost you $1. So what they were trying to do is get you out to the ATM. And then we have online banking, we have mobile deposit, all of those things. But then you look at Chase Bank, they're building branches right now. So where are we at? You know, where are we at in the technology cycle? And then AI, you know, we just recently had a meeting at the bank, and our CEO essentially said, yeah, we're going to look at AI. We're going to look at AI for efficiencies. But I don't think that human contact piece is gone, you know. And that's why I think you see these major banks, not just the community banks, but the major banks opening new branches, you know, because they feel like people still want to go into a branch. They still want to talk to somebody about a loan. I think that's important. A little bit about labor force, kind of the same thing. We have a hard time, and this is during COVID and then after COVID, filling our entry-level positions. So that would be like a personal banker or what everybody thinks is a teller at a bank. We have a really hard time filling those positions. And it's hard for me to understand that because we're a size, and I tell people when I talk to them about getting into banking, we're at a size where we're big enough where there's a lot of opportunity for you, but we're still small enough where you'll get recognized. So, and you can move up the chain if you do a good job. So it's interesting to me. Wanted to talk a little bit about fraud. Business owners out here, just be vigilant. It's out there. It's a real problem, not only internally but externally. So have your, what am I trying to say? Have your things in place to double check and triple check. It's just, we see a lot. So that's a big thing. And then just briefly on the tariffs, I don't know a lot about tariffs and how they work, but what I do know is I've got 3 or 4 manufacturing companies that their prices, they've had to raise their prices because they have to go overseas to buy their parts to make their goods or whatever they're selling. So that's a big deal. So just in conclusion, you know, we're very excited to be part of the Oregon City community. I haven't been here long. You probably have not seen me around because, like I said, a business banker, so I'm really headquartered in Tigard, but I cover a number of branches, and Oregon City is one of my branches. So thank you.
All righty. If you haven't had your question card picked up yet, please hold it up and we'll gather it. In the meantime, I'd like to invite all of our presenters to come up and we'll do a question and answer. So I think we only have, that one's working. Good.
Would you be able to share this one?
Yeah. You got it.
All right. This is a question for Ira. Can you elaborate on what your key demographic looks like for car dealers and how you reach them?
Yes. It's a great question. I don't know if I need a mic. So right now, our key demographic is people between the ages of 45 and 65. We're trying to move that down to closer to from 30 to 50. And how do we reach them? Most of my advertising spend, so my advertising spend is my second highest expense in the store, and the majority of it is digital. We don't do any linear TV. We do some OTT campaigns through streaming for cord cutters, but almost everybody starts their car shopping journey online. You Google lowest price Subaru near me, I want to look for a Subaru Outback near me, and I want to make sure that we have relevance. It's tricky out there because you're bidding on keywords, and everybody's bidding on the same keywords through Google or Bing, and it gets very expensive very quickly. But we're trying to attract, Subaru as a brand is trying to attract a younger audience, and by default, with less expensive cars, we're attracting a younger audience as well. We just want to make sure we have that presence. So that's kind of that. I hope that answers the question.
Some are predicting a business downturn beginning this year that could extend up to 4 years. How will that change the way you do business?
Can you repeat that question?
Some are predicting a business downturn beginning this year, potentially to last up to 4 years before the economy is good again. How might you adjust your business?
So business downturn is a very broad term. I'll answer it this way. I think the more I can connect with community members and make it an authentic experience for people to buy in my industry, the more likely they are to keep choosing out of a variety of options, us versus competitors.
Go. So, I think a lot of the same thing. I think it's so important during a downturn that you stay close to your customers and you help them as much as you can to get through downturn. On a broader scale, I think, we've been through this before. Remember 2008? I don't think it's going to be that, but we at the bank, I remember at that time, we didn't lend anymore. We were essentially in the branches, getting a hold of our customers, saying everything's going to be good. We're not going to get there, but I just think for me, it's about the relationship, and it's really about staying close to your customers and getting out in the community and supporting your community in any way you can.
To echo that same sentiment, 100% agree. One of our core values is to earn customers for life. What is that? That means not selling one car, one customer one time, or servicing their car one time. It's to build a relationship with them. So they're going to see the same hardships that we are. So what are we going to do to help them out of it? Is it a less expensive car? Is it lowering their monthly payment? Because people do have to have reliable transportation, and that's our responsibility to provide for them. So what are we going to do to help them meet the needs where they're at? Mm-hmm. But it's all based on that relationship that you established at the very beginning.
Yeah.
All right. How has Oregon City been as a place to do business, and what can the city, county, or business community do to support you better?
It's hard starting a small business when the state, the county, and the city all have different requirements, and there's not a lot of talking between the three. There's no place you can go and Google. Copilot cannot help you. It was challenging to start, but I would say the one good thing is that, as I said earlier, this community really listens. If I make a public comment or I share a piece of feedback, it is very often that I'll get an email from somebody in the city asking me for more or wanting to know what I think. So even though it was hard to start, I feel incredibly supported by people that hold the power to make decisions.
I got to think about it. I've been in the Oregon City market very long. So.
Well, we love being in Oregon City. When we were looking at this construction project with the investment that we were going to make, we did look at relocating. I was an advocate for definitely staying here where we are. We have a great relationship with so many people within the community and the government that help us when we need it. And I'm very glad that we ended up staying here. And supporting who we are. We're also the only car dealership in Oregon City because they're not letting any new car dealerships in, and there aren't any left.
Yeah.
So we wanted to maintain that.
So yeah, I would just say that you know, we have a branch here, we have a presence here. We've had one for a long time, but I think, you know, we have a newer manager at that branch, and, you know, we really need to get out in the community, I think, and it's probably becoming members of organizations, an organization like this, and, you know, getting to the chamber and just, you know, getting out there, supporting the community, and, you know, offering our services when they're needed.
So I have several questions for Tara and then a few more for Lithia. What made you decide to switch from high tech to restaurant ownership?
I knew this question was coming. High tech is tough. Being a female in high tech is tough. I think my husband at one point several years ago said to me, you know, this job is killing you. I remember him distinctly asking me when I was last happy with the job. And I thought about that, and I said, oh, easy, when I was, you know, slinging cocktails, making coffee, working in the front of house. But that was in my early 20s. That was a long time ago. And I spent a lot of time working in nonprofits as well from a volunteer perspective. I'm a board chair at a nonprofit that deals with housing and homelessness in the greater Portland metro area. And I realized through that experience over the last 8 years that being local and doing something that matters really, really mattered to me. And I could no longer continue just living so far outside my values, working for a large corporation in high tech. It was eating me alive. I honestly couldn't do it. I don't think my husband thought that I would go and open a restaurant. When he asked me about a career change, I think there was something maybe not as tough. I don't think he wants a second job washing dishes, but he certainly did that this past weekend. So that would be a little bit about my story. Yeah.
Okay, so the second question for Tara is, what is the longer-term vision for Watershed?
I think that every town needs a watershed, right? I hope that people that live in smaller towns, and I mean, what are we at? Almost 40,000 people in Oregon City, so that's not really small at this point. I grew up in a town of 5,000 people. That feels small to me now. I would love to see folks enjoy happy hours and dinners at Watershed. We're looking at doing that in the next year, but intentionally so. I'm very mindful of not galvanizing other businesses. We have a really strong restaurant community downtown. I'm so appreciative of how welcoming the folks that own restaurants have been in downtown. So I'm intentionally and carefully considering that. Yes, I would love to have another Watershed location someday. Some folks in Canby are advocating hard for that, but Canby's pretty close, so I think that's a little close to me. I'll have to talk to Oregon City Brewing and see how they were effective at doing that.
Okay. Final question for Tara. Is Watershed hiring, and are those antlers on the sign?
Oh, that's a Seth question, no doubt. Watershed is hiring. We are looking for back-of-house staff right now as we expand to some happy hour positions. So if you know any line cooks or prep cooks, we would love to have that conversation. No, they're not antlers. The logo of the watershed is an actual watershed. A watershed is a body of water with one or two more bodies of water flowing into it. So the logo is actually a watershed, not antlers. Thank you, Seth.
Okay, so I have two questions for Ira. First is, when do you expect to receive your tariff credit, and how to get that to the customer? I think that's a joke.
Yeah, we're not holding our breath.
Okay, sounds good. If all the increases in cost, about what percentage could be attributed to tariffs?
That's a good question. I don't know if I could quantify that without doing some more research, to be honest. But I think definitely on the one slide that we had that showed the increase on average of $6,000. Keep in mind, new cars are transacting at close to $50,000 now. So you can look at approximately 10% of a new car. With Subaru, they absorbed the majority of the tariff impact. So it went up, $1,800 across, and we transact right around $30,000, so less. But as far as the overall cost of doing business, the tariffs definitely, have an impact, but it's going to be single-digit percentage probably. It's a combination of everything else that's happening along with the tariffs and the rising costs of doing business. I mean, utilities was a great example. It's 5 figures to keep, when it's really cold out in that old building, it's very expensive to keep it warm, so our team has a warm place to work and keep it comfortable with customers. So costs are rising, I feel like, on every level. It would be nice to get some relief, but tariffs are, single-digit percentage is what I'd say.
Great. So we've run out of questions. Does anyone else have anything burning? Okay.
Does anybody want to buy a new Subaru? Over here.
So I guess I would give everybody an opportunity if you have any final comments you'd like to make to our group.
So thanks for having me and us, and it was nice to come and get to meet some people, and I think we really want to get involved in the community. I think it's something that we haven't done for a while, so I'm excited about that. And we do a lot in the community. So if there's opportunities out there to get involved and have Columbia Bank help out, we would love to be a partner.
This comment is for Ira. Many of your customers are my customers. I cannot tell you how many people walk down from the Subaru dealership to hang out for 2 hours instead of hanging in your lobby. Yes, so just a thanks for having your business in our town and not leaving. Yes. I'm really glad. One question: the enhancements you're making to the building, it's the same location. You're not building another location around downtown, right?
No, so that's a great question. It is on Main Street. If you're familiar with Oregon City Subaru now, we're on the same property. It's just going to be built on the other side of the property. So we're actually going to stay in the building that we're in now until construction's complete, with the exception of service is going to be in trailers across the street. But yeah, we will be there. We're staying right here.
So what happens to the building that you're currently in?
It's funny that you ask that.
Sorry, we're having a personal conversation.
It becomes a parking lot for 8 vehicles, which shows you how big the building is. It'll be an 8-car parking lot with EV charging. Well, it'll be for our customers, hopefully. Yeah.
The other thing I want to say is just thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for having us.
All right. Thank you very much for our panelists. Yeah. So I just have a few more comments before we go. First, if you'd like to renew your membership or become a member of OCBA, we've made it super easy. There's these cards on the table. You can use a QR code and it'll take you right to the spot. And you can do that if you like. Also, we want to highlight what's coming up next month on the 4th Tuesday, which is March 24th. We will have a forum here. The topic is artificial intelligence. Love it or hate it, it's here. For the past several months, it seemed like you can't glance at a news feed without some reference to this phenomenon. Our concern is how it will affect our economy, for better or worse. We're preparing a panel to discuss some of the impacted areas with representatives from the state of Oregon, Clackamas County, City of Oregon City, Clackamas Community College, and the health industry. So look forward to that. Also, there's a series of Business in the County forums coming up over the next few months. These are luncheon forums to help the business community engage with Clackamas County commissioners in a question and answer format. The forums are a collaborative effort between the Oregon City Business Alliance, North Clackamas Chamber, the Clackamas County Business Alliance, and Clackamas County. The March 11th forum focuses on the vibrant economy, especially land available for business development and childcare. That'll be at the Gregory Forum at the Community College on March 11th from 11:30 to 1. On April 29th, there'll be a forum on strong infrastructure highlighting the Sunrise Corridor and transit. It will be at the Carver Business Center from 11:30 to 1. And finally, on June 23rd, the final forum will focus on safe, secure, and livable communities covering affordable housing, jail, and a recovery-oriented system of care. The forum will be located right here at the Abernathy Center from 11:30 to 1 p.m. With that, I'd like to thank you all for coming, thank the fantastic Abernathy staff for their great food and service, and enjoy the rest of your day. We're adjourned.